We've gone forward in time with commits. We've gone backward in time with git reset and git restore. But we can also move sideways in time, meaning exploring alternate realities by using branches. Branches are alternate versions of our repository that allow us to work on specific features, different versions, bug fixes, whatever it is that we want to keep separate from our primary working tree, but may want to reintroduce into the main timeline later. We can see what branches we have by running the git branch command. It won't be super interesting right now, but let's say we wanted to conduct some experiments. Let's create a new branch with the completely misunderstood git checkout command. Now, there is in fact another way to make a new branch now, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But because this is the older school way of doing it, I wanted you to be familiar with it. Also, I ran a poll, and like 90% of people who use Git only know how to do it with git checkout. So you're going to learn both ways, but git checkout has been around for a lot longer. We're going to use git checkout with -b to create a new branch and call it experiment. I know that checkout may not make sense as a command for right now. Just stick with it for a moment. You can see that our fish-based prompting here shows us that we're now on the experiment branch. And if we run git branch, it indicates that we are on experiment and that we also have another branch called main. So let's start making some changes. We'll echo, let's see what this does to a new file, experiment.txt, git add this experiment.txt, and commit that change with add experiment.txt. Not the most inventive, but it'll work. Okay, we have a new commit, and we can even see it with git log. There it is. Notice that when we look at git log this way, main is back here, but we're over here in experiment. That's also where our head is, and it is a different commit. Let's head back over to main with the git checkout command again. But this time, rather than -b to create a new branch, we're just going to give it a branch name to head over to. Now we're back in main. And if we run ls, you'll see that there is no experiment.txt in this version of reality. That only exists right now in experiment. When we make a file git aware, or we make git aware of a file, then it only exists in the branches in which it's been tracked. Since it hasn't been introduced in main, it doesn't exist for us when we've activated that branch. If we head back over to the experiment branch, we'll see it again. We can do that with git checkout. Checkout takes a dash, sort of like the back button on your remote control. It'll toggle between your last branch. So if I can run that back and forth to go between my two branches. I'm on experiment now, and there's experiment.txt. Now, we haven't seen any help pages for Git just yet because they are not that easy to read. To give you an idea, let's look at the help page for Git checkout. It requires so much prior knowledge to understand what's happening here. It's really not that useful. So what does git checkout actually do? It updates the repository to match the state at a given commit or branch. That might sound like git reset, but the difference is that checkout won't treat changes after a specific commit or changes in another branch that aren't shared as though they exist. Let me show you what I mean. Let's run git log and choose any commit message, any commit hash. Any of them will do. If we run git checkout with that hash, we're going to get yelled at a little bit, but it works. It says we're now in a detached head state. You can look around, make experimental changes, and commit them, or discard any commits you make in this state without impacting any branches. So basically, we've entered sort of the Doctor Strange mirror universe, right? Where we can do whatever we want, but it's not part of the actual timeline. And it tells you this is where we learn about git switch. It turns out that in recent-ish versions of Git, a new command has been introduced that is a little clearer and easier to use than checkout, which is git switch. And in fact, if we run git switch with a dash, we're back to the experiment branch. And sure enough, we can use it to switch back to main as well. So while checkout does still work and allows you to examine different commits at different points in time. Switch also works to move back and forth between branches. And you can even use switch with -C to create branches. Let's stay in main for a little bit and talk in the next lesson about hanging on to changes we're not ready to commit while we move between branches like this.